Hi everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, Flynn. And it's great to be here today. Before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, both elders past and present on which this event takes place today. I'd like to start with a lane that we have in Sydney and an artwork by Chinese Aboriginal artist Jason Wing. Has anyone seen the laneway? I think the majority in this room probably has. The laneway, it is an amazing work that kind of brings together different worlds, and that's the whole point of the artwork. When you see it, the clouds are meant to represent the heavens, but also fun. And if you see the angels inside their chest, they have this circular form. And I only found out this recently, but Jason incorporated that element into the work to represent campfire and gathering and coming together. So I thought that that was a really nice way of kickstarting the talk today. So today I'm talking about how to find hidden stuff and do other things good in the city too. I was trying to come up with something, a topic, an idea of what I could talk about with hidden, and there's so many possibilities, and Creative Mornings are just fantastic with their themes and where you can go with the themes. So I'm going to look at some hidden stuff, why cities are the way they are, and then also look at opportunities for our involvement in cities. So first of all, we're in Sydney, that's pleasant, but when I talk about stuff, I don't just mean, what we're wearing, what we have at home, our things. I'm also talking about our favourite coffee place, where we go in the mornings and we get that relief when we finally get our coffee. I'm talking about your flatmate that actually has a hidden secret qualification in astrophysics. I'm talking about the lamppost that perhaps you walk past one day and it's covered in knitting, it's covered in yarn bombing, which is just down the road by cloth fabric, but then is gone the next. I'm also talking about different qualifications and different awards that we have in the city. People in this room, I'm totally convinced you've all received awards at some point, and we don't wear them on our sleeve. We wear them with pride and we have them in our experience, but it's something that's hidden. And also, I think this is a really interesting aspect of having a hidden element in the city is investment or economics, or if you have a great idea, what can you do with that idea? More later on. When we think about hidden spaces in the city, some are very known to locals, and then others are more obvious and you experience them like Kimber Lane, and they're integrated into a larger framework. But this is a space that I like to talk about. This is actually, in urbanist speak, a desire line. So connecting one space to another by its most convenient route. Hence what looks like, I'm originally from a farm, this looks like a sheep track to me. But it's really interesting because what it says is a lot about human behaviour. And if we are to then take that out on a larger scale and look at the city, then we would make sure that the places along this route are viable, and we'd make sure that from A to B, that is where we design. We don't try and design outside that natural path. Again, some hidden spaces can be designed to facilitate surprise. And this is in Montreal, and some of you may have heard of this already, but it's actually swings that, as you swing on them, you create music. And you don't only create music, but there's also lights underneath the swing that light up by your energy. Other hidden spaces are really micro, they're tiny. And this is by the Pothole Gardener. He goes around and does all these funky, really micro installations throughout the city that play with this element of scale. Another micro installation, but slightly different. This tries to draw attention to gaps and cracks in the city. And we featured this on trendingcity.org a few months ago, and were recently contacted by a grade 3 teacher who did this in her class, gave each kid a brick. Talk about creative mornings. And the students ran wild and filled up the school with these Lego bricks, and gave the maintenance guy some fun over the coming weeks. And hidden aspects of our city are also really largely cultural, or they can be something that actually has so much a meaning attached to them. So this is an artwork that will feature in Hyde Park over the coming years, and it's actually an artwork that is a war memorial done by Tony Albert. And currently in Sydney's Hyde Park, the war memorial doesn't recognise the Aboriginal diggers, and so this war memorial will do that over the coming years. But hidden aspects of the city aren't just pretty, okay? There's really an ugly side to the hidden aspects of the city, and yuppies off, that's pretty obvious, but you know, the location or what it's trying to say, the undertones of what it's trying to say can be often largely hidden. This is talking about a larger process whereby more advantaged people move into a space and displace less advantaged people, and this is gentrification that's happening throughout the city. And in a city like Sydney, this issue of gentrification coupled with affordability is a really big issue that perhaps we don't talk enough about. So I'm really excited to be here right now talking to Creative Mornings, because I believe that cities are pretty hot and they're going to be for a long, long time. Why I think this is because there's magazines like Monocle, completely obsessed with this magazine, not only because it looks at cities, but it does it in a hidden way. You know, when you're reading an article about what people are wearing in different cities, when you read an article about different political agendas happening in different cities, when you read about an article that focuses on urban renewal in different cities, it does it in a really fantastic way, a way that isn't pushing content at you, but is actually really interesting. In a similar way, The Guardian, which is a newspaper based in the UK, just launched Guardian Cities, which is a really exciting hint at times to come. And this complements Atlantic Cities and Huffington Post that are currently facilitating the agenda on a worldwide scale around cities. You can also buy some dinner plates for your next dinner party. You can give the man in your life a tie, and you can wear your favourite city on your neck. Doesn't get much better than that. And Arcade Fire, I think, summed up the suburbs really well. They learned to drive in the suburbs. That was fantastic. Kanye, he always talks about meaningful things, doesn't he? And he made up a word, I think, architected. Is that a made up word? I think it might be. And Lana Del Rey, I think she's just really confused about where she is or what she's doing. But things are there for a reason, completely there for a reason. And something that I wanted to talk to you guys about, assuming that there was some marketing, advertising, design people in the crowd, was that more and more we're selling this idea of livability. So it's not just having some 20-something skinny model selling the car. It's actually talking about an urban issue. And this is a really cool space in Melbourne on the top of Federation Square. And it's a pop-up garden that you can rent a box for. And so you work and live in the city and you just come up there and grow your veggies. And Ford is completely ripping off this space. But I like that. I like that it's leveraging off that. And that would be largely a hidden space. But now this is a national campaign. Similarly, Coca-Cola, they've been doing it for years. They're so ahead of the 8 ball, it's not funny. You guys know this space. I mean, it's a landmark. It's an institution in its own right. And it's been recognised as such. It's now a heritage feature in the cityscape. And we can't remove that. That's going to be there for some time. And so that's interesting in the way that we look at advertising and advertising role in space and how we value advertising. Similarly, what's happening is that we're increasingly starting to value graffiti and street art, and we're really starting to rethink graffiti as a problem. It's an emerging economy that we're seeing street artists come into the gallery and then back out again. And what I'm really interested is in the interface of having a young tagger down here seeing this art and potentially running into Maggie and talking about art and sharing stories. That thing where youth actually get to have a space is something that designers, urbanists, don't often think about. Other hidden spaces that quickly become the busiest place in the world, the grounds in Alexandria, really highlight again different processes in the city, urban renewal and urban revitalization. Previously industrial areas that we've, in a post-industrial city, are no longer spaces of production, but are increasingly spaces of consumption. And then there becomes a blurring of space. So here, this is outright private. We know that when we go to the grounds, it's owned by the grounds. Say g'day to Kevin Bacon and enjoy a good coffee. But when we go to a place like this, has anyone been to Rouse Hill? Rouse Hill, yep. Increasingly, the separation between private and public spaces is becoming blurred. So this is an issue that's increasingly hidden. When we go to Rouse Hill, this looks private, it can feel private, but it's completely, it looks public, can feel public, but it's completely private. When you go there, they've taken all aspects of public life and chucked it into a private domain. At a larger scale, this is a pretty funky picture of New York. I like it. But cities, and like what's happening in Rouse Hill, they're leveraging off this idea of livability. They're leveraging off hidden forces in our city that are considered to be economically viable, but also socially enjoyable. So New York, they've for years had one of the most successful branding campaigns in the world. I love New York is just, I've never been to New York, but I feel like I know it. And that is because of the marketing that it's generated and the marketing push that it has. Around the world, the cities are increasingly becoming competitive. This is a hidden agenda, perhaps, a hidden aspect of the new economy, the global economy. And so the question becomes, who is the most livable city? It's largely competitive, and this is a hidden, I guess, direction that many cities are taking. And Sydney is just one city that's trying to move towards this new economy. It sees the value in having a creative and cultural economy that is transferable across the globe and has a really great reputation that will attract talent and that will grow the prosperity of the city for years to come. But I think we need to ask, here in this room perhaps, what is Sydney's brand? For me, I think that sometimes it can get confused with the Opera House or our house. It can get confused with our beaches, our bridges, but perhaps we could synthesize it into a GIF. And I think you guys know what's to come. But for me, I see largely a convergence between the real and digital worlds. And this is happening rapidly. So we can be walking down the street and a hidden element of that is augmented reality. Sorry. So in Sydney, do we promote our love for the waterways and open space? Do we promote our love for wildlife and for people? Or do we promote our institutions and governments? I think what we should focus on is not so much the gift, but perhaps the local scale and us in this room, what we experience on a daily basis. And that's where I see the value in a platform like Instagram. This is one account, CC Sid, of many in Sydney that highlight Sydney as a local place. CC Sid is an account that you can take over for one day and showcase your Sydney. I think that this is going to have increasingly more value than a not so hidden landmark like the Opera House that everyone's familiar with. So this really stems from what we value as people and what we attach value to in terms of culture. So this guy, Seb, I think he represents everyone, and he values the inner city lifestyle. He values local and fresh food. He values all these things that make up perhaps hidden elements of the city. He thinks about graffiti in a completely different way. He uses public transport, which some of the most competitive cities in the world are really good at. And he's innovative. He's always forward-thinking. He attends CreativeMornings, of course. So this is really where it comes from, collaboration. And I know that we talk a lot about collaboration, but it's providing opportunities for people to talk, opportunities that perhaps are otherwise hidden. So platforms that make the hidden visible. Platforms like Think Act Change, Green Ups. At the moment, I really feel like Sydney is covered in a rash of meetups and opportunities, and so I decided to make my own. But it's not just that, it's about highlighting opportunities for taking those hidden ideas and making them a reality. And there's so many different platforms that aren't only focused on giving you a grant, but focused on providing you with much needed experience or much needed mentorship to take those ideas forward. And there's a couple of programs happening at Vivid at the moment, a $3,000 minimum pitch that you can give for an idea, and then also a pitch that will give you mentor assistance for your ideas. So check out Vivid, it's coming up soon. So for me, I haven't really harped on about me being an urban planner, and I guess largely urban planners are hidden, so maybe I'll remain hidden until the Q&A. But I feel that Hidden Sydney, that's all of us. And we are the creative future of Sydney. And I hope that I've shown you that Sydney and cities around the world are largely becoming more competitive based on highlighting and emphasizing and providing opportunities to their hidden elements. So thanks very much, guys.